32 years ago, genocide took place in the Kashmir Valley and led to the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits. Now, almost after 32 years of that massacre that had happened in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, the Kashmir Valley, now two petitions in fact, have come before the Supreme Court of India seeking a SIT probe, reopening this whole investigation that has continued. And one petition has been filed by the Roots in Kashmir. And I have with me a very special guest, Mr. Amit Raina, who is joining us today. Mr. Amit Raina is associated with Roots in Kashmir and is in fact working for the rights of the Kashmiri Pandits since the exodus had happened in the country and the unfortunate days had begun. So, welcome to CNN News 18. My first and foremost question to you is that almost after 32 years, such a demand has come up before the topmost court of the country. I remember that you filed this petition in March this year, and now it's coming up for hearing tomorrow. How do you see this, and is the hope high this time?
Thanks, Ananya, for inviting me. Uh, I think hope was always high. I still haven't understood the reason why the Honorable Court, in its wisdom, dismissed the petition earlier. Because all we were asking was that please reopen the cases, fast track the cases which are against humanity, which constitute as the genocide, and give the community a sense of closure and sense of justice. And the first thing we wanted was at least ask police to give a status report on the cases, on the hundreds of murders that have happened and killings that have happened. Unfortunately, the court, in its wisdom, chose to think differently from us. But subsequent judgments and orders of the Honorable Supreme Court as well as Jammu and Kashmir High Court recent order in Nadimag gives us a hope that this time Supreme Court will reconsider its earlier judgment and start the process of judgment, roll the ball.
So, but a very, very important question that also arises out here is that almost 32 years have passed. The evidences that were there in this particular matter would have been washed away. The forensic evidence might not be available. How do you think that a reopening of the genocide investigation of what had happened then, a census being conducted of who had lost their lives? Because what we remember is that the official numbers were too low, while it has always been said that things have always been different on the ground. So, how do you see that an investigation can take place at almost after 32 years after the genocide had happened?
I remember after dismissing our petition, Supreme Court, in the same year went ahead and formed an SIT on the 84 Sikh rights, which happened almost 6 years before the genocide on Kashmiri Pandits. And it was a riot. You need to understand that the murders of Kashmiri Pandits, the cases, there are enough eyewitnesses available on most of the cases. Like the Nadima case which Jammu and Kashmir High Court recently opened, we know there are eyewitnesses available. We also know that Zia, who was the person behind that massacre, was alive till last year and could have been easily prosecuted and brought to justice. So if there is a will, there is a way. We also need to understand, if you look at the way Bangladesh, after 50 years of its existence, went ahead and prosecuted the people responsible for the genocide in 1971, the genocide of Bengali people. The Jamaat-e-Islami kingpins were prosecuted in 2016-17. In fact, as much as last year, and were given punishment. So if there's a determination, state and prosecution as well as the police will find its way. Or if police says they cannot find the evidences, they are incapable of doing it, fair enough, then at least close those cases. Because I think it's 32 years, the community deserves a sense of closure. Delivering justice would be the most appreciable thing. But if you can't deliver justice, if you think that 32 years have passed and you cannot take the cases to the logical conclusion, then you at least order the closure of these cases and let the people who have been victim, or the families of victims, the survivors, have a sense of closure. But today you are keeping everything in limbo. You are not closing the cases. You are not delivering justice. And justice delayed is justice denied. And I don't think we are an inferior democracy or a judiciary than smaller countries who were found much later than us. Uh, it is time for judiciary of this country to tell us uh, does crime pay in this country, or crime or there is no timeline of the crime punishment. It is for the judiciary to tell us that 5 million people, half a million people who are awaiting justice will get justice, or let them get up and say sorry, we cannot deliver you justice. At least give us that sense of closure. You can go and order a reopening of cases of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who supposedly died in a plane crash in 1945 in a country which is not under your jurisdiction, in Taiwan. You can open a case of 1948 where the third bullet was fired on Mahatma Gandhi or not, when you have already convicted a person on killing of Mahatma Gandhi. If someone is telling me today that they cannot find evidences on killings which happened 32 years back with many witnesses still alive, then I honestly don't know what to say.
Sir, another two sets of questions in one go is one that since now the circumstances have changed in Jammu and Kashmir, because the pre and the post 2019 abrogations, in fact, the abrogation of 370 and pre and post, if we see that, in fact, the criminal jurisprudence also comes into play now. It's a very legal aspect that I'm talking about, that now even the criminal jurisprudence, that is the IPC, that is now completely applicable across the country and also in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Do you think that it would also somewhere or the other affect the investigation and would give it a boost if at all the Supreme Court directs an investigation to take place into this matter?
See, there was not much difference between Ranbir Penal Code and Indian Penal Code. They almost were similar in nature. And at some point of time, once the cases moved to High Court or Supreme Court, relevant IPC sections, it got converted into relevant IPC sections. We also need to understand in most of the cases, there is the Tata applicable. Tata laws have been applicable. So if it is the killing of 4 Air Force officers, which is now investigated by NIA on Yasin Malik, it was the TADA law which was applicable. Even in the cases of Bitta Karat, there are many cases of which TADA law were applicable, which were uniform across the country. Uh, I honestly sometimes doubt that there was an intention and sincerity by judiciary authorities. Because you need to remember that even in the cases of the 4 Air Force officers that were killed in December 89, uh, there has not been significant process. Now, this is a case of 4 Air Force officers who were out to defend their country, were killed, they were unarmed, they were killed on a bus stop. Now, if government of India, if Indian Air Force is not interested in delivering justice to its armed personnel, then I honestly don't think how much they would be interested in delivering justice to us. So it is somewhere, so sorry state of figure, and sorry to say it, but that's the truth. That's the way at least I perceive it, that you are denying justice to half a million people. You are setting the wrong precedent. See, if you deliver justice, it also sends a message to the people who today are creating trouble in Jammu and Kashmir, that the law will chase them down, they will be punished, the time will not be a bar. Now, unfortunately, if you have a zero conviction rate, you are providing enough motivation to the criminals, to the terrorists, saying that the law of this country is indifferent to the victims of genocide and terror attacks. So I think that also needs to change. We also need to ensure that the faith of the common man, the faith of Kashmiri Hindu community is stronger in the judiciary. We for 32 years have not sought revenge. We have sought justice. If judiciary today wants us to take revenge, then I think they should be open about it, because there's not a single case of revenge taken by a Kashmiri Pandit community. But if justice is denied, then I'm very sure there will be someone within the community who will be pushed to look for an alternate, which is not, I don't think anyone wants that, because then it puts the entire system into question. So I think it is judiciary duty bound, and so is executive duty bound to deliver justice.
So another question that I have for you is, and I'm sorry before asking this question, but then there are a lot of viewers who are really young, because we are currently speaking over a platform which is mostly watched by youth, and a lot of youth is on internet at this point of time and would want to know as to what really happened on those days. What were the real instances that had happened? If you could highlight some of those and could tell more about some of those events.
See, I would see. It's sad that our entire ethnic aborigines of a place have been completely cleansed, and we still are trying to pass on the information when it should have been this. But it's my duty, especially for the youngsters who may have not read much about it. See, there has been a systematic persecution of minorities in Jammu and Kashmir, and that minority in Jammu and Kashmir is the Hindu community, especially the Kashmiri Pandits community, which formed a very minuscule population. It was around 3 to 4% of the population, and they were persecuted from the day Jammu and Kashmir got uh, merged with India after the Petition was signed. And the discrimination started the moment National Conference government, led by Sheikh Abdullah, came into power. And the persecution started from denying them jobs, denying them opportunities. So the discrimination, uh, the Kashmiri Pandits who was a topper in the state board examination, or was a second position holder, or was a third position holder, did not get seats in the professional colleges, in medical college, engineering college, and they had to go outside the state to pursue their education. While someone who was with 45%, 50%, 52% used to get admission because he came from the majority community. So there was a systematic persecution of Kashmiri Pandits, denying them jobs, denying them education opportunities, denying them opportunities to in professional colleges, and this slowly started into attacking them. This was started in 1980s, while they were small attacks, but the first major attack happened in 1986 when entire Hindu community in South Kashmir was uh, attacked, and there was a riot against Kashmiri Hindu minorities. Very small community. We also people sometimes say that why didn't you retaliate back? You need to understand that we are the aborigines of the valley, and we were scattered across the valley. You had a village which had two Kashmiri Pandit homes. You had a town which had five Kashmiri Pandits home. You had a mohalla which had a one Kashmiri Pandit home. Being an aborigine, we were not at one concentrated place. We were scattered across the valley. So they were killing in 86, which was led by Mufti Muhammad Saeed. They were burning of Hindu temples. 400 temples were destroyed, and there were attacks on Hindu. This subsequently was followed by 1989-90, when the killing started happening in Kashmir Valley. And the initial, out of initial 300 killings that happened, initial the 250 killings were of Kashmiri Pandit community. Now you need to understand that a community which is only 2% of the population has a 75% victims in the terrorist attacks. Apart from that, there were Hindu women which were kidnapped, gang raped, then cut alive on the seesaws. There were posters put outside Kashmiri Pandit homes saying that we want Kashmir without Kashmiri Pandit men, but with Kashmiri Pandit women. There were posters put outside Kashmiri Pandit homes saying, "Leave Kashmir, leaving your daughters and women folk behind." There were newspaper ads in Kashmir which said that a kafilo, a zalimo, a kafir is Kashmiri Hindu. You leave this place. Yahan kya chalega? Nizam Mustafa. Uh, and Pakistan se rishta kya, la hi lalla. And attacks on Kashmiri Pandit leaders, key personalities continued to create fear amongst the Kashmiri Pandit community. Unfortunately, the state government of Farooq Abdullah refused to act against the people. Instead, they went and released hundreds of terrorists. The central government at that point of initially headed by Rajiv Gandhi and subsequently headed by uh, uh, VP Singh continued to ignore the attacks on Kashmiri Hindu community. Then Mufti Muhammad Saeed collaborated with Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, got five terrorists, his daughter kidnapped, and in turn released five terrorists, which emboldened the terrorists, and then they went on increasing the attack on Kashmiri Pandit homes. So by 19 January 1990, lakhs of people were on road and were demanding heads of Kashmiri Pandits. So it created a fear, and in one, and that's the day Exodus started. the people who stayed behind chose to brave out the situation were massacred. So multiple massacres happened. Vandhama, the entire village was wiped out of Kashmiri Pandit community. They did not even spare a 3-day-old infant. Then you had Nadimarg, you had Sangrampura, then six were attacked at Chatti Singhpura. So there was a continuous campaign against Kashmiri Hindus. Then properties were burnt. Then to ensure that Kashmiri Pandits do not come back, because once they were in Jammu, with the hope that they will go back, to ensure Kashmiri Pandits do not come back, 60,000 homes of Kashmiri Pandits were burned out. कि अब आएंगे तो कहाँ आएंगे, अब तो घर ही जला दिए. Kashmiri Hindu properties were aspersed, then temples were destroyed, vandalized, and we have records of around 900 temples which were destroyed in roads. So there was a systematic ethnic cleansing and genocide which was happening on the community, and this continues today. Post 2019, also the killings of multiple Kashmiri Hindus who are not aborigines but have been living in Delhi for centuries. That killing continues, and they're trying to ensure that Kashmir is 100% Islamic in nature. That's the unfortunate part of it. Uh, the state seems to have failed in protecting its people in that part of the country.
So another thing, and one question that is being asked very prominently at this point of time is that a certain film came in, and after that demand has come up again. Is it true? What? How do you see this? Because a lot of people are saying this because a particular film came in, it has uh, ignited again the demand, and it is going so. How do you see this, and how do you respond to
Ignited the
such?
demand for what? Ignited the demand for
For
what?
a reinvestigation, for a
No,
closure into this.
there has been a constant activity and work by the community on justice. In fact, there is a NHRC judgment also which calls the what happened to Kashmiri Pandits akin to genocide. The first petition roots in Kashmir filed was much before uh, the movie was even conceived. Then we filed petitions against Article 370 and 35A, which was again much before movie was conceived. So there has been a constant effort. Yes, the credit goes to Kashmir Files is that it has created awareness across the country on what actually happened in that 89-90 period. In fact, the last scene of the movie is from the actual incident that happened at Nadimarg, the massacre of Nadimarg, which was recently reopened by the Jammu and Kashmir High Court. So it has definitely created awareness. It has also shocked the people because they were not believing us, saying that this is what has happened to us. They did not believe that a fellow Indian will do this to another fellow Indian. But when they saw the movie and they realized that they were speaking the truth, it has shocked the nation. But the effort to deliver, to get justice, to ensure that the judiciary as well as executive delivers justice has been constantly going on. And irrespective of what the judgment comes tomorrow, the work will go on because uh, we are a race which is on the verge of extinction. We have to ensure that we reverse the genocide. We ensure that we save our identity. We ensure that we save our language. We ensure that we save our culture. We save our religion, and we ensure that our symbols, our presence in Kashmir stays because Kashmir is incomplete without its aborigines. The Kashmir will become an Islamic state if Kashmiri Hindus are not settled back in India.
Last and final question before I let you go is how hopeful are you with tomorrow's hearing? What do you think would be the course of law, and how do you think the Supreme Court hearing would go?
Uh, Given the recent judgment order of Jammu and Kashmir High Court on reopening of Nadima cases, plus the global trend on how tribunals and courts have adjudicated and given orders and judgments on genocide cases, the recent Bangladesh Supreme Court orders on judgments on the perpetrators of 1971 genocide. I'm very sure, and also Supreme Court's own action on opening cases which are earlier than the 1990, 91, 92 exodus, uh, gives us a hope that the Supreme Court of this country will not disappoint its minuscule minority. it will strengthen our faith in the system and deliver justice. Now, that's exactly the hope we are working on for last 32 years, and I hope the Supreme Court will ensure that the Kashmiri Pandit community will get justice and not revenge.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Amit Rainaji. It was a pleasure having you here. And almost 32 years after the genocide had happened in the Kashmir Valley, and now the Supreme Court is all set to hear two petitions seeking a SIT probe, a reopening of the investigations into this particular case. I'm Ananya Bhatnagar signing off from this StreamYard
Thank you.
for CNN News 18. Thank you so much, Amit Rainaji, for joining us.